very preposterous in our approach to this discussion. And people do not seem to understand what the young people mean by Ruto must go. I do not know why that is very difficult to understand. We've chosen that as the hashtag to push because we believe that the government currently is corrupt, it lacks accountability, no transparency, and it hires on cronyism. When we say Ruto must go, I do not know why people believe that it is only the person William Ruto. We are talking about the presidency. So because the political class has failed us countless times, what we are now saying is, please rush that reconstitutional process, because even if you, when you saw Right Honorable Raila's whatever he put out, he does not address this movement as a Gen Z movement. Suddenly it becomes an inclusive movement. And what consistently we've said, the political class has taken our lived reality and used it as talking points. So now they've taken whatever it is that we've been putting out on social media and they're going to say them in chambers for them to sound cool, for them to gain political mileage, because before we started speaking, they never were saying these things. What we are trying to do is to drain the swamp and clean up whatever we have, whatever this rot is we have administratively. We want that entire presidency to go if they will not shape up. And we are willing to have a caretaker government, to the speaker take over 60 days, and we go into a fresh election. A fresh general election is cheaper than the amount of money we lose to corruption in a week in this country. That is why I will not take this nonsense from the political class trying to lie to us that the country is going to be in shambles, while they are already systemically killing us already. Part of what we've asked for is goodwill. And for us, it is very easy. We've never clamored for power. We've already told the president, as a show of goodwill, release us unconditionally, let the people, the killer cops who have, and we will see them tomorrow because we saw them last week on Thursday. Get those people off. When a police officer is attacking me like a bandit, I do not understand what that is about. We want those pain points to be addressed. We are not here to play politics. We are not here to try and ask, so who is vying for what? And I feel like the media is doing an unfair job trying to box this into the kawaida tribal politics, because that is how the youth have consistently been locked out of these broad-based discussions. I have not once seen any youth bodies talked to, but civil societies already received writings from external organizations to ask them, how have you spent the money, instead of government writing directly to them. Curiously enough, the youth groups were not addressed by those, like Ford Foundation when we talk about it. It's a ploy to divide the country. While they're out here talking about unity, they are consistently sowing division and deceit. That's what we're talking about.
You know, it's believed that the remaining slots in the cabinet are meant for Azimio.
I have no,
is it time,
I'm not privy to that information. That's on the level of Raila Odinga and Ruto and the discussion.
He's your party leader.
But you know, he's my party leader, but I'm not privy to the discussions. I'm not on the table with that, on those discussions. But what I do understand is Raila has got the fact that Ruto has actually, Kenya Kwanza has actually failed to satisfy the populace. And don't forget, he also holds 50% of the population. So in that respect, when he comes in and says, I had a manifesto as well. You've not dealt very well with NHIF. You've not dealt very well with unemployment. You've not dealt very well with cost of living, which Azimio has always stood for. So if it means that I take a few of the government slots so that we can help you govern from within rather than from outside.
But he's jumping in after we have been killed, Honorable Passaris.
No, the thing is, yes, you know what I would like, as we've agreed, to see your list of proposed names.
So we should anticipate to see some Azimio members.
I think the government right now,
cabinet.
Ruto needs to have the government in place. You know, I heard Kasmuel here talking about the fact that, oh, we've managed in the last 2 weeks without CSS. Our legislation, our constitution cannot work without the CSS.
So, Honorable Passaris, you've hinted at
Azimio
having some of its members as CSS.
You know, no, I mean, that's what I'm saying.
That's from
within.
From within. You see, the thing is, if for instance, Baba had his own manifesto,
but this was
and
not
he talked about
revolution.
clustering. It wasn't our revolution, absolutely.
That's
but don't forget.
Where would they jump in?
Yeah. You see, the thing is, it's true. But you see, when you're faceless, when you're leaderless, when you're tribeless, and when and formless. Okay, so all those things, I would love Gen Z. I would love Gen Z to identify its face.
No way.
And then
we do not need to identify our face because we've asked you to identify the face of corruption.
All right.
And
so
you have not.
Azimio is hijacking the Gen Z's
No. I don't believe that Azimio is hijacking. But Baba, don't forget.
This is not the
don't
revolution.
forget, even those Gen Zs. You know, I keep telling people that ODM was incorporated in 2005. All right. If you look at the average age of ODM, it's 19.5, which is actually covering and representing all the Gen Zs.
Problems will be solved by having Azimio on board.
No, I believe that Ruto's problems will be solved by actually listening to the constructive criticism of Gen Zs.
But we need
to first of all release, all the demands that they've made are really reasonable. All right, and they need to be dealt with. But the fact is, the unreasonable part of the demands of Gen Zs is to paralyze the economy every week. And by so doing, they're actually messing up the country. Right now, Kenya was doing so well in terms of hosting conferences.
But we were also doing so well in terms of corruption.
They're peaceful while demonstrating.
You know what? The problem is, I was in ODM. Recently when we came into government again, when government was formed in 2022, the ODM was still not satisfied and they were going on the streets. I couldn't get my heart to go on the streets because I saw the cost of that in 2017 and I do not want to see a life loss. So I didn't want that.
But the difference here is that the Gen Zs are peaceful.
They went peacefully, and I'll tell you one thing, that is something we have to look at as a country. We have to look at that as a country. And I really want to see accountability because at the end of the day, if you send police with live ammunition to a protest, right, then you're obviously going to have people killed.
Gikonyo,
and that is wrong.
As we begin to wind up, Gikonyo,
right.
Your submissions on this.
On this, just a quick one. If you were in ODM and now are aligned to Kenya Kwanza, you need to go back to your electorate.
I am not aligned.
You need to go back to your electorate because you were voted in on ODM and you're not functioning as ODM. That's a different issue.
She has to understand. When you take the oath of office,
that's a different
you represent everybody. I don't just represent ODM. When I took my oath of office as the woman representative, I represent all the citizens.
Issue, and not
ODM alone.
The citizens,
not ODM alone.
The constituents need to act.
Yeah.
The issue we are dealing with is the tumbocracy, right? I'll use a very simple term, tumbocracy. It's this, my turn to eat. And the Gen Z have come out and have rejected the tumbocracy. And they've given recommendations on what needs to be done. Those recommendations aren't even comprehensive, but there are some initial actions. My question is, other than dissolve, and it was optical, because then he reappointed some, other than dissolve the cabinet, why has William Ruto not acted on those other demands of accountability? Because if he had, the temperatures would have assuaged. But instead, he continues to fan the flames. The second, we have a right to protest. Why has William Ruto sanctioned the use of live bullets, tear gas canisters? I've been on the streets twice. The protesters are peaceful. Actually, you don't feel insecure at all. But they were infiltrated on the basis of political mobilization.
We are running out of time.
Why has our NIS and DCI not dealt with those politicians? Because violence, political violence, is instigated by our political leaders, and that needs to be dealt with. Last thing, I do agree the Gen Zs need to move to the next level. There is a gap. They need to actually get alliances with other strong movements. They need to put some faces because their space is now being hijacked by politicians, because that's what politicians do.
Kasmuel, even as we wind up in a minute, kindly, what next for Kenya?
You cannot ask me what next if I do not have a now. You cannot ask me what next in terms of employment if I'm unemployed. What we are saying is we are inviting the entire nation to rethink what a future looks like. The reason why we are here is because our forefathers had their chance to say, this is the future we want. In a country whose median age is 19.5 to 20, just like this party, it is imperative on us to figure out our now. We cannot jump into what next if we do not have a now. We do not have a current existence. We are being brutalized, and we have to make it absolutely clear that we cannot figure out what next before the people who have plundered and looted our future are behind bars. We cannot have a what next if we are still being killed extrajudicially. We cannot have a what next when we are the voice of reason that the president has with the youth is kidnappings, shootings, and them showing up in swamps there. We cannot have a what next when consistently the political class will wait for us to clamor for change and have them hijack our movement. We cannot have a what next if we do not have a now. That is what we want people to understand.
Thank you. Honorable Passaris, in 30 seconds or less.
Yeah, you know what, for me, I